Let's imagine we are working on an analytics dashboard that tracks user statistics like total user count, average age in different profession, and distribution of users based on the different fields like country. To gather and structure this data efficiently, we can leverage aggregation pipeline in MongoDB. So, let's begin by getting the total count of the users within this users collection. As you can notice, currently we have total count of 39 within this users collection. So let's try to get this total count using the aggregation pipeline. For that, let's try to visualize first by going to this aggregation tab. We can select the text and we can have the various stage within this. Now to get the total count, we can make use of count operator. So we can say count and we need to specify the key. So let's specify key as total count. Now as you can see, we get total count of 39. So this is the key that we specified. So this key has value of 39, which is the total documents count. So let's try to implement this using Kotlin Mongo driver. So within this users data source, let's create a new suspend function. Suspend function get total count and we can return the long. So for the aggregation pipeline, first thing we need to define the stage. So we can say val pipeline, which is list of the stages. So we have one stage that is count. So we can say aggregates dot count. Now we can pass this pipeline to the aggregate function. So we can say val result equals the collection name is users collection dot aggregate and we can pass this pipeline. Now as you can see, the result document type is different than the users collection. If we don't specify resulting document, then it will simply return the user entity. But after using this aggregation pipeline, our document had changed to this. So we need to create a data class representing the new document. So we can say data class count result. Now we have a single field with count. So we can say count of type long. And finally, we can specify the count result. Since it is count operation, so our document will be only one. So we can say dot first or null and we can finally return the result. So we can say result dot count. And if it's null, we will simply return 0. Now within the routing file, let's create a new route. So let's say get request and specify the path as dashboard. Let's also create the data class representing the result. So we can say dashboard data. We will return this as a response. So we can mark it as serializable. And let's say total users of type long. And for total users, we can say users data source dot get total count and we can create an instance of this dashboard data. So we can say data equals dashboard data and we can pass the total users. So total users equals total users. And finally we can respond. So call dot respond and pass this data. Now let's run our application and let's make get request to this dashboard path. We should get the total users count as 39 since our total document count in users collection is 39. Let's try to get the total users based on the country. So for each country, we will calculate the number of users within that country. So for that, let's first visualize. To get the unique countries, we can use the group stage. So we can say group Now for this group, we need to specify the ID field. So we can say ID and map it to the country field. For each country, we will have single document. Now, to get the users count within each country, we can make use of the accumulator, SOM accumulator. So for that, we can give the field name as count, and for this value, we can make use of SOM accumulator, and for each user, we will add by 1. So this will get us the list of country with the users count. Now let's try to implement this. So let's create a new suspend function. Suspend function get country with users count, and we can return the map with key as a country and the value as a long, which will be the count. Now we can define a pipeline. So pipeline calls list of, and we can make use of aggregates dot group, since we want to first group based on the country field. So for the ID, we can specify the country field name. So we can say country, and we want to use the SOM accumulator to get the user count. So we can say accumulators dot SOM, and we can specify field name as count, and we can add 1 for the each user. We can get result as result equals users collection dot aggregate, and we can pass the pipeline. Since our result will look something like this, so we need to define a data class for the result. So we can duplicate this one, and we can say country result, and we can get the count, as well as we can specify the country as a ID. So we can say Bishan ID and val country of type string. So our country is the ID. Now we can pass the country result. Since it contains multiple documents, so we can convert it to list, and our result type is map of string to long. So let's convert this list to this type. So we can say well response data is mutable map of string to long, and for each item within this result, we can say result dot for each, and we can add this to map. So we can say it dot country to it dot count, and finally we can return the response data. Now within the routing, we can get the country count. So we can say country, let's name it as country with user, and let's get the result as users data source dot country with users, and we can have the property over here as well. So we can say country with users count of type map of string to long, and we can pass this as country with user. Now if we rerun our application and make the request, as you can see, we get the country with the users count. Now let's try to get the average age of user in each profession. So we will be getting the profession and the corresponding average age of the users within that profession. So for that, let's first visualize that. So we can first group the documents based on the profession field. So we can say profession, and we can get the average age average using the average operator. So we can say the AVG, and the field that we want to average is age. So first we group the document based on the profession, and then we define the average age field, and for the value we use this average accumulator, and the field we want to average is the age, so we specified that field. And finally we got the list of profession along with the average age of users within this profession. So now let's try to implement this. So within the users data source class, let's create a suspend function. So suspend function get average age by profession, and we can return map of string to double. So string value will be the profession and the double will be for the average age. Now we can define a pipeline. So we can say pipeline equals list of, and we can say aggregates dot, first we want to group, and the id for grouping will be the profession field, so we can specify the profession. And we want to perform the average accumulation, so we can say accumulators dot avg, the field name will be average age, and we want to perform average on the age field, so we can specify the age field. So first we group based on the profession, then we perform the average on this age field using this average accumulator and store that within this average age. Now we can get the result as result equals users collection dot aggregate. We can pass the pipeline, and the resulting documents look something like this. So let's define the resulting documents. We can duplicate this one, and we can say profession is average result, and for id we can specify the profession, and we can get the average age as double. So we can say average age of type double and the profession which is id. Now we can specify the result type, and finally we can convert this to map. So and first we can change this to list since it may contain the multiple documents, and we can say val response data which is of type mutable map of string to double. Now for each document within this result we can say for each, and we can add this to map. So key will be it dot profession, and the value is the average age for each profession. And finally we can return the response data. And within the routing we can get the profession with age, average age as get average age by profession. And we can duplicate this one. We can have this field name, and value will be of type double, and we can pass this profession with averages as profession with averages. And if we rerun our application, make the request, so for each profession we get averages of users. To wrap up, we have seen how powerful the aggregation pipeline can be for structuring and analyzing data directly in MongoDB. This is just a glimpse of its potential. There are so much more you can do with it. I encourage you to explore the MongoDB documentation for more advanced use cases and deeper insights into the aggregation pipeline. So that should be it for this video. Thanks for watching and happy coding.